Good morning, gentlemen, and what a grand morning it is, too. We have just cause for celebration. Galloway and Phelps are sending another fiend to San Quentin. A nice showy trial, and he'll be strapped down with gas seeping into his tiny reptile brain. Now, to fresh business. Galloway and Phelps, the task is at hand. The address is on the hill, north downtown off Fremont Avenue.
Another woman murdered? But didn't he just congratulate Cole for finding the killer?
Skipper, is the new letter genuine?
Now, boys, we all know how many imbeciles have confessed in the short case. Ray Pinker will let us know in good time.
The captain's referencing the letter that we discovered in our last episode, partially based on the real-world letter that was received concerning the murder of Elizabeth Short, thereby connecting it to the Black Dahlia case.
A fine morning indeed. We keep locking them up, but the bodies keep piling up.
Californians love a fad, Phelps. As long as the bricks hold up at San Quentin, there'll always be killers in this town to send there.
A practical philosophy, Galloway, but it ignores Cole's bigger point. No matter how many men we lock away in San Quentin, drunk, married women continue to be killed.
Greetings from sunny California. When's it gonna stop?
The rain pours on the shoulders of Cole Phelps. As a matter of trivia, this is the first day we experience rain while playing L.A. Noire. These low-hanging clouds stick with us for the remainder of this case, as does the overpowering thought that we're missing something.
First the letter, and now another body. Come on, you can't keep on telling me there's not a killer still out there.
You know, Phelps, all these arrests on your record are giving you a reputation. You don't want them turning into unsolved.
Getting a vicious killer off the streets is more important than my reputation.
Really?
And besides, landing a big fat marlin is more impressive than an ocean full of minnows.
The minnows make it the man, Phelps. You can't always hit home runs. Sometimes you just gotta make first base.
A practical bit of wisdom from Galloway. As impressive as the cathedral is, it's still made of individual bricks. We arrive at the crime scene at 12:17 p.m.
Detectives?
Phelps and Galloway, homicide.
Scene is secure. The rest of the patrolmen are going door to door, canvassing for witnesses.
Thanks. Keep me informed.
Will do, Detective.
This looks awfully familiar.
I think that's the impression the boys from the Examiner took with them as well.
There's nothing original under the sun. Why should murder be any different?
What do we have so far?
Not much trace evidence to speak of. Storm blew in around 10 last night, and the rain washed most of it away.
And the body?
Looks like she was tipped out of an automobile from the tire tracks and superficial injuries. Strangled with a length of rope. And for my money, it's triple braid again.
Time of death?
From her temperature, maybe 2 a.m., but it was cold last night.
Usual head injuries.
Blunt force trauma. Knock him over the head, then strangle and mutilate. No message with this one.
At least she was left clothed.
I doubt very much he was concerned with her dignity.
The green silk dress is very distinctive. Any sign of her other shoe?
No. And no handbag or other personal effects.
Well, thankfully I don't have to blur this one out. So he didn't strip her naked, but this means that he couldn't have scrawled a message on her. And there's the missing shoe. And no personal effects. Since this murder is a bit different from the previous ones, how do we know if it's connected? Examining the head, we can take a closer look at the ligature mark on the neck.
There appears to be a dry cleaning label. Superior Laundry Services, F1363.
Ooh, and looky here, we've got a laundry label. This green silk dress looks pretty nice. She probably had it dry cleaned special for whatever event she was attending that night. Which means the dry cleaner may still have her information on record. Examining both hands, we don't find anything else. Interestingly, there is no wedding ring. So if it is the same killer, he had no need to wrench it off and destroy her finger in the process. But does that mean she's really single? And if married, why wasn't she wearing her wedding ring? Nearby, we find evidence marker B near to some footprints.
No drag marks. The killer was moving around, surveying the scene.
So we have two possibilities here. Either the killer picked her up in his arms, carried her to this spot, and then dropped her down, or he killed her and dragged her body here late last night before the storm blew in. But then to find these footprints here suggests that he returned to the scene of the crime, perhaps to admire his handiwork. Nearby, we find tire tracks at evidence marker C.
Our driver and our killer are most likely one and the same.
Since we don't find tracks where the body was dragged, we have to conclude that he's a stronger man who picked her up out of the trunk and plopped her down, or that he came back later. Only those two options explains the footprints with no drag marks and the tire marks. But with that, we exhaust all evidence at the crime scene. Our biggest clue is the dry cleaning label. We can head to the nearby Gamwell to get the address from R&I. But before we can...
Detectives, I've been working the houses across the street and up the block. This lady thinks she has something for us.
Detective Phelps, LAPD.
I'm Mrs. Barton, Catherine Barton. I live just across the way.
Well, this is handy. The witness comes straight to us. Saves us some work. But why would she be so eager to provide information? Is she simply a concerned neighbor, or does she have an ulterior motive?
Did you see anyone around here last night?
Not last night, but yesterday, early evening, I saw that awful hobo.
Aha. An awful hobo, eh? Maybe she did see an awful hobo. Or maybe she just dislikes the nearby hobos and sees this murder as a convenient way to convince the LAPD to get rid of them. After all, if she can convince us that the hobo is the murderer, we'll take out their camp and make her neighborhood just a little bit nicer. But at this point, we don't have any evidence that she has ulterior motives or that she's lying in any way. She's clutching herself, but only because it's raining and cold. Otherwise, she's maintaining an even gaze with Cole Phelps. She doesn't look smug like she's playing us for a fool. She looks honest and genuine. And so to get her to tell us more, we'll play the good cop.
Do you have a description?
Tall, gaunt, horribly disfigured. I think he may have had an accident in the war. He's a very scary, angry man.
Any idea where we might find him?
One of the hobo camps around here. He's some kind of hobo leader. They all follow him around.
Thank you, ma'am. You've been a big help.
Of course, anything I can do to help. I'd hate to think that something so ghastly could happen right here and nothing be done about it.
Well, looks like it may just be aid from a concerned neighbor. But a vague description of a horribly disfigured hobo is not much to go on. We'll put this feather in our cap for later. But for now, let's follow up with our initial lead and call into R&I to get the address of the dry cleaner.
Phelps, badge 1247.
How can I help, Detective?
I need an address on Superior Laundry Services.
Just a moment. Superior Laundry Services, 1260 West 1st Street.
Can you track down reports of hobo camps in the vicinity of Signal Hill?
Just a moment, Detective. There's a large camp under the bridge on Grand between Temple and Sunset.
Thanks.
So now we have two addresses to inspect. We'll start by heading to Superior Laundry Services.
No message.
Excuse me?
There was no message.
Where?
On the Vic. The last bodies had something written on it. This one didn't.
I'm failing to follow you.
Can't be the same guy is what I'm saying, right? Before you start trying to link this to Maldonado and all the others.
There are more factors to consider than the messages, Rusty.
This doesn't fit your pattern, Cole. End of conversation. Understand?
It doesn't fit the pattern in many ways, but it does in one big important way. It's still a dead woman murdered late at night with triple braided rope and dumped in a field. That's an important similarity. We arrive at Superior Laundry Services at 12:27 p.m.
At least the rain stopped. We can change back into those white bucks now.
I don't know, for some reason, Cole doesn't strike me as a white bucks kind of guy.
Phelps and Galloway, LAPD. We're investigating a case, and one of your laundry labels came up. F1363.
If you give me a minute, I'll go find a register and you can take a look. take a look for yourself. I've got clothes that need pressing.
You wrote the number down on that dress, is it there?
F1363, F1363. Nope, gotta be on the other side. Ah.
Mrs. T. Terrellson, 43 Emerald Street, Westlake.
And we've got an address. Heading out, we can admire the wonderful attention to detail they put into these ancient-looking washers and dryers, and hop in the car to head towards Teresa Terrellson's residence.
I've got a feeling we're about to meet another wife killer.
You've always got that feeling, Rusty.
Yeah, and it's usually correct.
Please, for once, can you not let your assumptions color your detective work?
Just you wait. The Nordic types show a particular disposition for this stuff.
That's right, Rusty's razor. If we let Galloway have his way, he'll arrest every husband in Los Angeles. We arrive at Terrellson's residence at 12:35 p.m. Despite it being afternoon, the overcast sky makes it incredibly dark. And oh no, looking in the window we see two small children. And on the porch we see toys. Teresa Terrellson was a mother.
Hello? Yes?
Detectives Phelps and Galloway. Is your wife home, sir?
My wife went out last night and she hasn't come home.
Can you describe your wife and what she was wearing?
We were out at a friend's place, Bobby Ross's, for a party. She was kind of dolled up. She had her green silk dress, open-toed white shoes. Those are her favorite shoes.
Can we come in, Mr. Terrellson? I'm afraid we have some rather bad news. Do you have someone who can look after your children, Mr. Terrellson?
I've been trying to arrange a sitter. Look, tell me what's happened.
I'm afraid your wife was murdered last night. Her body was found this morning. We're very sorry for your loss. I know this is a difficult time, Mr. Terrellson, but we are going to need you to answer some questions. First, we're going to take a look around.
What for? You don't think
It's procedure. You see to your girls.
The daughters stand up and Lars escorts them to the kitchen. Sits them down at the table.
Stay here till Daddy's finished talking to these men.
Where's Mommy?
Everything's gonna be all right, sweetheart.
We would like Mommy to come home now, Daddy.
What's the problem, Terrellson? Let him search. You got nothing to hide.
And then comes back to the living room.
Want to hear something funny, Terrellson? Some bums think filling out a missing persons report actually rules him out as a suspect.
Galloway clearly has his eyes set on Lars, but first we can explore this house. We don't find much in the living room, a baseball magazine on a table, a fire burning on the hearth. We see two bedrooms across the way. Heading into the bedroom to the left first, this looks like the master bedroom. We find a dresser covered in all sorts of cosmetics. And lying near to an overturned picture,
Need to check if she was a regular.
another neighborhood bar on another pack of matches. Well, now we have another address to explore. Examining the picture.
I wonder why the picture was turned down.
Why, indeed. It's clear things weren't exactly happy at home, but were things bad enough for Lars to want to murder his wife? Let's see if we can find any evidence of that. Next to the bed on the floor, we find a purse.
Not much help.
Oh, but that's not the purse we need. Okay, that must have been some other purse. With that, we finish exploring the bedroom. Heading out and moving across the hall, we find the children's bedroom. We don't see much here, just toys and books. Next, we'll head to the kitchen, but on our way, we find a bookshelf in the dining room. And ooh, looks like our Mr. Terrellson is a sailor. And what do sailors like to use? Triple braided rope. Uh-oh. Moving towards the table, we find another pack of matches, but we already got the address we need, so we'll head into the kitchen. Here we find the daughters at the table.
If you'd excuse me, ladies.
There's a handwritten grocery list.
Don't think this is anything.
But it doesn't help us much.
I'll be out of your way momentarily, ladies.
Moving into the kitchen, we see the remains of a dinner in a sink. And heading out the door by the fridge, we enter the laundry room. And what's this? Oh, this is the purse we need.
So she went out without her handbag?
That does seem odd. Inspecting further,
At least she was spared that particular indignity.
that's true. It's unlikely the murderer would have kept lipstick on his possession. He seemed to use whatever was at hand. Perhaps Teresa was left clothed because he couldn't find lipstick and therefore didn't need to use her body as a canvas. Assuming it is the same murderer, of course. And next to this,
She'd have to be in quite a state to leave this behind.
so she left her driver's license and presumably a car. So she was out in the dead of night without a car. What, just walking around? Turning right, we see something on the floor. Muddy boots. And let me guess, size 8s?
You can see if Pinker can match the impression to the crime scene.
Sure enough, size 8s. Is every man who wears size 8 shoes in Los Angeles a wife murderer? But these muddy boots proves that he was out last night, after the storm blew in. And turning around, we find even more incriminating evidence.
Lars was out in the rain last night.
A flannel shirt, still dripping with water. Either he was out early this morning or he was out late last night. We'll have to get to the bottom of this when we interrogate him. Let's head outside to see if we can find anything in the yard. We see a doghouse, but no evidence of a dog. And in the back, look at that, we find his boat. It looks exactly like the model we found in his dining room. And let's see, what's the name on this thing? Eva. Who's Eva? He didn't name it Teresa after his wife. Could Eva be the name of a lover? Or just an old girlfriend? Let's see if he has the same name at the prow of the ship. Heading forward, we see that it's being painted. Perhaps he recently changed the name. But more importantly, hanging at the front of the ship, we find...
Looks like a match with the ligature marks.
Triple braided rope, and it's been cut. With that, we find all of the evidence we need from the house, and it doesn't look good for Lars Terrelson. Now, we need to talk with him so that he can explain himself.
For the record, Mr. Terrelson, what is your wife's name?
Teresa.
We'll start by asking him if he can give us a list of possible suspects.
Do you have any idea why anyone would want to hurt your wife?
No. Everyone loved Teresa. She was so full of life. It can't be anyone who knew her.
This is a difficult answer to respond to because all he says is, it can't be anyone who knew her. That no one who knew her would have a reason to murder her. That's a subjective opinion, not really a fact. So the options truth, doubt, and lie don't really fit here. Instead, we'll go with the options included in the remastered version: good cop, bad cop, and accuse. Now, we can't make this decision based on his body language here, because his body language conflicts with the evidence we find in his house. He sits here utterly shattered. We get every indication that he just learned that his wife was dead. Every now and then he stops to hold back the tears. He closes his eyes and looks down. He chokes back his sorrow. And we don't get any indication that this is forced or that he's faking. It seems genuine. But the evidence we find in his house needs to be answered, and so we need to confront him based on the evidence. Using good cop, bad cop, and accuse, we'll try to accuse him of murdering his wife with the rope that we found on his boat.
I think you're lying, Lars. I think you were mad at your wife for embarrassing you in front of your friends. I think you came back here and strangled her and then dumped her body on the hill.
You think I strangled my wife? How do you expect to prove that?
We, of course, will point to the bow rope we found on his ship.
Your wife was strangled with triple braid rope. The bow line from your boat is a perfect match.
Look, I know this looks bad. I'm gonna have to come to terms with the fact that I let her go.
Whoa, what kind of response was that? He admits that it looks bad, but he doesn't try to explain why the rope was cut on his ship? If you didn't murder your wife, you would go out of your way to explain why the rope was cut on your ship. But he doesn't. Instead, he says, I have to come to terms with the fact that I let her go. What? Go out to the party? But that doesn't relate to the rope, which we were talking about at that minute. That's a weird response. So let's move on to the next question and ask him for his alibi.
You said you went to a party at Bobby Ross's place?
That's right, Bobby had a bunch of people over. We were having a good time. She said she was bored and decided to leave.
Oh, I see. He said he shouldn't let her go because she chose to leave Bobby Ross's party early, and he decided to stay. It was still a weird thing to bring up when we were talking about the rope, but here his body language changes. He's no longer cut up about the death of his wife. Instead, he's playing a poker game. He's sitting here thinking about his hand, trying to guess what Cole Phelps's next move will be, having second thoughts, doubting himself for a moment, but realizing he's being observed and not wanting to give anything away. That's not the behavior of a man who's being forthright. He's hiding something, but we don't know what. And since we don't have evidence, we'll try to coerce him to give up the details by playing the bad cop.
You let your drunk wife leave the party and go off on her own?
Look, I was angry. I was having a good time. She has to go and ruin it. We always have to do what she wants to do. Last night she wanted to go dancing.
Any idea where?
Where she always goes. A bar down on North Beaudry Avenue. Barron's Bar. She goes there, drinks too much, gets maudlin, and calls me. I go and bring her home.
Okay, so we have confirmation that she went to Barron's Bar. There's a reason, then, that we found the matches in their bedroom. The matches that were right next to an overturned picture of them as a couple. Perhaps we can learn more about the victim's state of mind by asking Lars about their marriage.
Mr. Terrellson, was Teresa happy at home?
Yeah, I think she was.
Okay, well, that doesn't really fill us with confidence, and neither does his body language. Notice how he's holding the rest of his body completely still. Arms at his sides, back straight, but his eyes are moving all over the place. Left, right, up, down. Every now and then he gulps. Yeah, I don't think his wife was very happy at home. He is hiding that fact. Is it out of shame? Because after all, as a good husband, he should be making her happy. Or is it because she was unhappy because he was violent, and that violence led to him killing her? A fact he's trying to keep from the detective. We don't have any evidence, but to find out the truth, we'll play the bad cop.
Spill it, Terrellson. We like the look of you for this, so you better give us something.
We're at the party. She has a few and says she wants to go out dancing. We only have the sitter until 9. I get mad. I tell her to go ahead, but I'm staying. She storms out. Look, I'm doing well at cards. I hardly ever do well. I married her because she was so much fun, but now she drives me fucking crazy.
What time did she leave the party?
About 8:30, maybe a little earlier.
So, a woman getting older, her youth slipping away. Going to a party, wanting to feel young again, but her husband just wants to gamble, and so she walks off into the night to go dancing? Is that plausible? Can we believe this story? Let's find out if Lars talked to her again that night.
When was the last time you saw your wife?
Around 8:30. The card game at Bobby's was wrapping up. I played out my hand and drove home here. I paid the sitter and went to bed.
Oh, okay, I think we caught this guy in a lie, as we are reminded by seeing the clothesline in the yard behind him that the neighbor family is using to dry clothes in the rain. We found muddy boots in the laundry room and a dripping wet flannel shirt hanging from the door. Either he got up this morning while the kids were asleep and chopped wood in his forest, which he doesn't have, or he didn't go straight home after Bobby's party. He went out last night, which explains why his boots are muddy and his shirt is wet. He's lying. But that would be hard to tell by looking at his facial expressions. He looks rather stoic. His face is stone. He's meeting eyes with Cole. He's barely blinking. At first, this gave me the impression that he didn't have anything to hide and he was telling the truth. But the more I look at it, the more I get the idea that he's terrified. He knows he's lying, and he's a deer in headlights. He has frozen everything on his face, trying to hide from the piercing gaze of Cole Phelps. I think he's trying to project confidence here, but he's overdoing it a bit. At any rate, we'll accuse him of lying.
You're lying, Lars. You didn't come straight home, did you?
And how do you figure that?
Well, we can figure that by pointing either to the muddy boots or the wet jacket. Either of these options will lead to a success.
You were out in the rain. You got soaked, Lars. We found your wet weather gear.
Okay, I stayed a little later than I said. This cute little brunette was hitting on me. Teresa noticed. I was half cut. I walked her home from Bobby's, but nothing happened. I walked back and got the car this morning.
Thanks for answering our questions, Mr. Terrelson. You'll need to go downtown to identify your wife's body.
I should have taken her dancing.
In my experience, Mac, if you give in to broads, you'll be giving in to them your entire life. We could break the husband's story right now. Call in, get some uniforms dispatched to check out his alibi.
That's a good point, Galloway. The story's a good one, though. It explains why she left the party so abruptly to go dancing. She found another woman flirting with her husband and it made her angry.
Operator, message for KGPL.
Putting you through now.
Phelps, 1247.
How could I help, Detective?
Can you run an address for a Bobby Ross? Then send some uniforms over.
Would you like him picked up?
No. Suspect says he was with Ross last night. We need to confirm the alibi.
I'll get a prowl car dispatched.
Thank you.
While they're working on that, we have other leads to check out.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Heading back to the car, we can plot a journey to Barron's Bar.
You believe this guy's story?
Kind of rings true.
We arrive at Barron's Bar at 12:53 p.m., and we get a big jolt of deja vu. Here we are, arriving at another bar to investigate another murdered woman. Is it just coincidence that all these married women get murdered after spending the night drinking? Or is there something to this? Heading inside...
Gents, drink?
Phelps and Galloway, LAPD.
I'm Benny Clough. This is about Teresa Terrelson?
Yes, it is.
I heard about it on the radio. They're saying it was that Black Dahlia freak again? God damn it. Yeah, I rang that husband of hers. The babysitter said he was out.
If you don't mind, we have a few questions.
So he tried to ring the husband and couldn't get a hold of him. Again, a story we've heard before.
What time did Teresa leave?
Around 10:30, I think.
All right, that seems perfectly possible. If she left Bobby Ross's party at 8:30, as her husband says, she caught a cab, came to the bar, hung out here for a couple hours. Yeah, that's enough time to find someone to take her dancing. And the bartender here doesn't give us any impression that he's lying. Standing straight, meeting eyes, looking comfortable. He is telling the truth.
On foot? In a car? By bus? How was it?
She called for a cab.
Did you get the number?
Sure I did. I like Teresa. The only time she has a drink is when things aren't going so good at home. I was worried about her.
Huh. It's a bit of luck that the bartender would write down the number of the cab that one of his patrons took the night before and keep it? Seems a little strange to me.
Put out an APB on the cab. 3591. Should be traceable.
Well, aside for the husband, if we're ignoring him for now, the only other suspect we have is the hobo with the scar. We can ask the bartender if he's seen such a person.
Who was she with? We've had reports about a tall, gaunt-looking hobo. He wasn't here last night?
I get plenty of bums in here, but nothing to fit that description.
So no hobo. But now the bartender's behavior has changed. He no longer appears to be confident in his answers. His hands are behind his back. He's pushing his head slightly forward. He tilts his head, raises his eyebrows, looks off into the distance. Something's troubling him. I don't think he's telling us the whole truth, so we can doubt his story.
The likelihood is that whoever she left here with killed her. Give it up, Benny.
All right, 2 creeps were all over her, promising to take her dancing.
You get a good look at these guys?
Sure. I got a good look. One of them was a sailor in uniform. His cap said, USS Indiana.
And the other man?
The other guy is Richard Bates. He's sitting in the back right now. Red polo shirt.
Well, hey, that's convenient. We'll have to talk to this Dick Bates in a minute. But before we do, we'll see if the bartender knows where Teresa was going.
Any idea where she was headed?
Nope. I didn't get that.
What was with that orangutan scratch? Super casual. but his behavior has reverted. He again looks like he's not hiding anything, so we'll play the good cop.
The husband said she wanted to go dancing.
And she always wants to dance when she's been drinking. She was trying to talk some guys into taking her to one of the dance halls.
Thank you for your help, Mr. Clough. We'll take it from here.
Hey, no problem.
This is Bates.
That's him.
LAPD, don't make me chase you, shitbird. Can't let the son of a bitch get away.
Oh, great, a runner?
Bates, we just want to talk.
Come on, got a ride. Get in and drive.
The owner of the car kindly steps out so that we can hop inside and chase down Bates.
I thought you were gonna leave me there.
Who knows what this guy will pull when he's cornered? We could have a killer on our hands.
Richard Bates races through a nearby garden. Galloway hangs out the window to take some pot shots and loses his hat in the process.
I don't think the killer would be kicking back in the bar where he met the victim.
Listen, a creature of habit is your killer. For some reason, they're sticklers for routine.
Phelps, you gotta get me closer. Hit it. Clean this asshole off the road. Keep it steady and I'll try to bust his tires.
Got it, finally.
Hit him, Cole. Spin him out.
Oh.
Come on, Phelps, you're letting this lust get away from you. He's showing you how it's done. Maybe you shouldn't have waited for me, Phelps.
Will you shut up, Galloway? There he is.
Don't go to sleep on me. Get me back in close.
Let's end this farce.
All right, you got me. I've had enough.
Put your hands in the air. Okay, Bates. You're gonna answer some questions.
I have a choice in this.
No, you don't have a choice in this. You just led us on a chase through the streets of Los Angeles, putting hundreds of people's lives in danger. Moron asking us if he has a choice in this. We'll start by asking about his contact with the victim.
Last night, you went drinking with a lady in the bar. Now she's dead, and your face is all messed up.
I'm in the clear on that. She preferred a sailor. You could lay it off on him. Are we finished?
No, we are not finished. We've got a bit more to do. Calm down. Look at this guy. Typical. Standing here, heaving his chest, wearing an expression as if we're wasting his time. Oh, this is a great injustice. The cops are on my case again. I don't deserve this. This is harassment. Now, we know from talking with the bartender that there was a sailor involved, but we can't just take this guy's word for it. We don't have evidence that he's lying, but maybe a bit of bad cop can convince him to cooperate with greater detail.
Do you want my partner to sap you? Tell us what we want to know.
She was okay. Drunk. Pissed off at her old man, wanting to go dancing. I thought I'd ply her with a few drinks and get my end away. Looks like your Salty had the same idea.
Salty? Salty end? Oh, sailor! Sailor, right. Because of the sea, salt sea. Gotcha. All right. Well, if she went off with the sailor, what did he do after he was rejected?
So what happened when you left the bar?
Sailor boy laid one on me. A cheap shot. After that, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know, officer. Gosh, all these things happening so quickly confuse me. I just can't handle it. I don't know, officer. Yeah, this poor guy. Why do all the bad things happen to me? So according to his story, the sailor punched him so that he could get Teresa alone. But again, this guy isn't giving us the full story. He's telling us half a truth and keeping the rest for himself. So sadly, we got to play the bad cop again just to get him to talk.
You've done time, haven't you, Richard? Is that why you ran?
I'm on parole.
On what offense?
Sexual assault. Look, I was lying there on the sidewalk. He flags a cab and jumps in with the broad.
We're taking you in, Bates.
How come?
Just for a chat. Nice private chat. I'll explain my theory of once a degenerate, always a degenerate.
Take him to Central. He's a material witness in a murder case. Find him a cozy cell.
Richard here knows the drill.
So we bagged this creep Richard Bates with a previous of sexual assault, but he came back to the same bar, the bar where he picked up Teresa. Isn't that a little reckless? You'd think even the dumbest of criminals would know not to do that the day after the girl goes missing, if they knew she went missing. We need more information to piece the story together. And the last clue we got was back at the bar. There we got the cab number of the cab that Teresa took from the bar. We'll use the nearby Gamwell to see if we can track down that cabbie.
Phelps, badge 1247.
How can I help, Detective?
I need an APB out on a yellow cab, number 3591. Ask dispatch to relay all sightings to car 11K.
No problem. I'll get on the radio.
Were there any incident reports filed in the vicinity of Barron's Bar on North Beaudry Avenue? We're tracking a sailor who was involved in a fight outside the bar.
I can check the reports, Detective. I have a message for you from Captain Donnelly. Message reads, James Jessup, U.S. Navy able seaman, has information relevant to your case. Jessup is currently being detained at Central Station.
Could be our man. Thanks for your help.
That's that cop. Seems like a decent guy.
Oh, that's convenient. The sailor involved showed up at Central by himself. Well, at least we don't have to track him down. We'll head to Central to have a chat.
Car 11K, we have a response on your APB regarding yellow cab number 3591. The vehicle has been identified at a gas station. Now heading west on 7th Street.
Garage on 7th Street. Let's hit it, Phelps. The cab driver might tie this whole thing together.
I hope you're right.
Okay. Change of plan. Not going to Central. Got to track down this cabbie. 7th Street. All right, we'll turn right up here.
Watch where you're driving, you maniac.
11K, yellow cab number 3591, sighted at the corner of Wilshire and Whitmer. Repeat, Wilshire and Whitmer, 11K.
What?
Oh, God, you're gonna kill us!
Yeah, well, I had to turn around in a tunnel.
Where's that cab got to now?
How did that cab cross the tunnel so quickly?
11K, further on your APB on yellow cab number 3591. Vehicle identified at Reggie's Cafe, heading north on Whitmer. KGPL clear.
Well, at least we didn't have to turn around in that tunnel again.
Car 11K, your suspect vehicle, yellow cab 3591, sighted at 6th and Valencia.
You see our taxi anywhere?
Breathe, Phelps. Breathe, damn it.
There it is, on the minimap. I'm getting close. Where is it? I don't see it.
The search continues.
Oh,
Car 11K, yellow cab 3591, was just seen leaving Dewey's Car Sales, driving north on Union Drive. KGPL.
There he is, finally.
3591, that's him there, Phelps. Hit the siren.
LAPD, we're investigating a murder.
What's that got to do with me?
The fare you picked up from Barron's Bar last night. What was the woman wearing?
It was a green dress. Oh, don't tell me something's happened to her.
Tell me about her.
She was with this sailor, and he was all over her. She wasn't having any of it. Said she just wanted to dance. But he had that look in his eye.
Where did you drop them off?
It was at the Crystal Ballroom.
What time?
After midnight. 12:30? Something like that.
Thanks. You've been a big help.
Well, that's gonna ruin my day.
Oh, I think that's my favorite guy. Whomever they hired to do that guy is brilliant. I want to see more of him. And now we know where she was going dancing, the Crystal Ballroom. But we still need to head back to Central to talk with the sailor, who came in of his own accord just because he's a concerned citizen. Perhaps he thinks that if we think he's being helpful, we won't pin this on him.
He's in interview too.
Thanks. What do you make of him?
Sailor on furlough who looks like he's in trouble and knows it.
Heading into the room.
Detectives Phelps and Galloway. We know why you're here, Jessup, so it would be best if you answered our questions truthfully.
I don't want any trouble, that's why I'm here. I heard on the radio about this lady getting killed. I got leave from my CO to come down straight away.
So why did you kill her?
I didn't kill anyone. Look, you need to believe me.
Let's start at the beginning.
And the beginning is his initial contact with Teresa.
You went to Barron's Bar. What time did you arrive?
I got a 24-hour pass. I got there around 7.
That's where you met Teresa Terrelson?
Sure. We had a couple of drinks.
So he got there around 7. Teresa Terrelson strolls in between 8:30 and 9, and that's when he thought he could make his move. But he says that all they did is have a couple of drinks. But we know both from Richard Bateson, the cab driver, that a lot more happened than just that. Let's see if we can get this guy to open up a bit by playing the bad cop.
So you tried to make a woman who was incredibly drunk?
Look, I'm not proud of myself, but I never hurt her.
You took her dancing?
That's right. Caught a cab to the Crystal Ballroom.
Well, at least his story matches that of the cab driver. But now there's that altercation he had with Bates, the violent one.
You had a fist fight with Richard Bates over Mrs. Terrelson.
You met the guy? He's a creep. You should take a look at him for this.
Agreed, he is a creep, but that doesn't make him a murderer, and we know that he was not the last one seen with her. The sailor was, and he's sitting here looking suspicious. He was almost giddy, trying to pin this on Bates. His eyes dart this way and that. He's chewing on his upper lip. Therefore, we doubt his story.
He's pointing the finger directly at you, Jessup.
I only had one night before I was back in the tub. He had all the time in the world to look for some action. I belted him. I'd do it again. She was better off with me.
Sure. You're a shining example of chivalry, Jessup.
So it looks like we're going to ignore the assault for now, which he readily admitted to, and find out exactly where he went with her after arriving at the Crystal Ballroom.
Where did you go after the Crystal Ballroom?
I think the wind had gone out of her sails by then. She caught a cab and I caught a bus back to the base.
A plausible story, but it seems a bit weird that she would be ready to dance after spending 2 hours drinking at a bar, hops in a cab with a handsome young sailor, arrives at the ballroom and then says, think I'm gonna go home. That doesn't really strike me as plausible. So again, we'll doubt his story.
We spoke to the cab driver. Tell us what really happened at the Crystal Ballroom.
I'd had enough. She was all upset about her husband bawling about her kids. She looked old. We left around closing, maybe 1:30. We got on a bus and she fell asleep on my shoulder.
Which bus?
An All-American 249. I went past her place. She jumped off and I stayed on it downtown. After that, I caught another bus to San Pedro. The Indiana's down there. She's being scrapped.
And that was the last you saw of Teresa?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't say much. I think she was kind of embarrassed.
Ooh. Yeah, if what he says is true, that's a rather pitiful way to end the evening. Wearing your new silk dress, feeling beautiful, getting drunk, finding a young guy to take you out dancing, and then you sob all night about your husband who's flirting with other women, and how as a mother of 2 you don't feel young anymore? My goodness. No wonder nothing happened after that. A sailor sat here at the Crystal Ballroom from 11 to 1:30 listening to her cry about her life. Ugh, how awful. No wonder she was embarrassed. But are we sure nothing else happened after all? The cab driver said he was getting kind of frisky.
The cab driver said that you were getting pretty familiar with Teresa.
It's not how I'd put it.
Well, no matter how he would put it, he's sitting here rather smug. Look at this face. Clearly not remorseful for trying to make it with a married woman. He sits here smirking, as if he's proud of his conquest. He didn't really tell us much to go on, so we can play bad cop to get him to talk more.
So the last thing you wanted was her playing hard to get. Did that make you mad, sailor?
Yeah, it did. She knew what a guy's looking for. All broads do. Dancing comes second.
And what happened at the Crystal Ballroom?
Nothing. Not even a little hand relief. She had another couple of drinks. There was no fun left in her. Just poured her guts out to some bartender.
Ugh, what a disgusting creep. And it sounds like he didn't even bother to listen to her woes. She sobbed her guts out to some other bartender.
We're holding you till we can clear this with the driver.
Yeah, my CO said as much.
Can you put the guy in 2 in a cell and inform the commander?
Sure, Detective. Got a message for you. Sighting of your disfigured hobo on Grand between Temple and Sunset. And it looks like the beau has a record, too. He's wanted in connection with 2 female assaults.
Thanks.
What now? Drive all the way to San Pedro and check his locker?
Let's see if the bus story checks out.
There's a depot at 1660 Beverly Boulevard.
If the bus driver can confirm that he dropped off Teresa and Jessup was still on board, then we can cross Jessup off our list of suspects. So, hopping back in the car, we can head to the bus depot.
3 suspects in the can and 1 on the hook. And still no hard evidence on any of them.
KGPL to car 11K. 11K, come in.
11K, go ahead.
Patrolman reporting that Bobby Ross's car game is breaking up at midnight.
11K, roger that. Plenty of time to get downtown, Cole.
It's possible. Have them bring him in.
KGPL, can we have Lars Carrollson picked up?
11K, roger.
So Bobby Ross's card game broke up at midnight. As Cole says, that's still plenty of time for Lars to murder his wife, but it also means that the storm had blown in by the time he left the party, which would mean he would have gotten soaked if he really did walk that brunette home, as he said he did. But back to checking the sailor's movements, heading inside the bus depot, we can move to the ticket counter.
And thank you, ma'am. You have a safe trip now. Where are you boys headed today?
LAPD. We're after the driver of All-American 249. Would have been around midnight onwards last night.
Just a minute. Frank Zeffirelli. He's your man.
Where can we find him?
Frank is out on the 7-4.
Can you tell us the route?
Hang on. I should have it mapped out here somewhere.
She hands us a map of the bus route.
Oh, sister, I was so tight I couldn't walk.
Easy!
I'll need to run the loop.
Oh, great. We've got to track down a bus?
We're not going to drive the whole thing, are we?
Won't take long. We have a siren.
Heading back outside.
All-American 7-4, let's go get him.
We're looking for the All-American 7-4. Hopping in the car, we see that the route is marked in red on our minimap. We'll start by going in a counterclockwise fashion.
This could be a long trip, Cole.
Or it could be a short one.
And here's me without my hip flask and only a pain in the ass for company.
Way to kick off the drive in high spirits, Rusty. Comments like that put me in just the right mood for some legwork.
Touchy.
You know what your problem is? You don't like hard work. This kind of rigorous search is what police work is all about. Discipline.
Save it, Phelps. You're just as bored as I am.
The trip goes on and on. I won't make you watch through the entire thing, but every now and then Galloway chimes in for some pleasant conversation.
Nope, still no sign of him.
Did you doze off, Rusty? I think you slept through my solving the case.
Yeah, very funny. You just give me a nudge if you see him, all right?
How about you nudge me?
I think that's a job for your wife, Phelps.
Oh, Rusty.
What? Is that it? I think that's it.
There's the bus, Cole. Turn on the siren and pull her over.
Oh, come on. Stop. Stop. What are you doing?
I get the point.
Gotta catch that bus. Stop, I say.
There's the bus, Cole. Turn on the siren and pull her over.
There's some kind of problem, buddy?
LAPD, we're investigating a murder. You had a sailor and a woman in a green dress on your bus late last night?
That's correct.
And the woman got off first, around 2 a.m.?
Yeah, that's right. And the sailor stayed on all the way to downtown.
Can you tell us where you let the woman off?
On California Street. To tell you the truth, she looked a little lost, like she got off on the wrong stop or something. I didn't like dropping her off near that hobo camp.
You've been a big help, Mr. Zeffirelli.
So Sailor Boy escaped by the seat of his bell-bottom trousers and left the broad alive.
Left her by the hobo camp.
Which means he's as good as killed her.
We can't eliminate any of them, but the disfigured man should be our starting point.
I'm gonna call for some backup. These bows hate cops.
So the sailor's alibi checks out, and the husband's story is still plausible, which means we've eliminated every single suspect we've found. All we have left is this disfigured hobo, whom we have yet to meet. But now we have hard evidence that Teresa did walk by the hobo camp.
I think we ought to investigate the hobo lead.
Well, if you think we ought to, then I guess we ought.
We arrive at 2:59 p.m. But with it as overcast as it is, it might as well be night.
LAPD, we'd like a word with you.
Save it for someone who's interested. They're fascists. Come to move us on and steal what little we have left.
6 rounds won't get us far.
I need you to stay copacetic, Phelps. You need to hold out for the cavalry rounds.
How do we do that?
Like this.
Buckshot, keep him down, Phelps.
If you want your rightful share, we need...
Killing make you feel powerful.
And Galloway just shoots 3 of them with his shotgun. Man, Galloway, don't hold back now. The hobo leader guy, whom I suppose is the fellow we're here to talk with, races forward for a fight, but he didn't expect the steel fist of a Marine.
Joe Lewis?
What's your name?
Comrade Stalin.
Very funny. We'll find out from your personal effects.
Stuart Ackerman.
You're under suspicion for murder, Ackerman. We're taking you downtown.
You can't do anything more to me than what the Japanese have already done.
The Kremlin's over here, Phelps. Toss it, see what you find.
The boys in blue take Ackerman away. Heading inside his shack, the first thing we notice, oh, finally, we get to read another one of those newspapers. It tells us more of the plot that's going on in the background of this story. Missing morphine. Cops say goons fighting dope war.
Still working, Jack. I'm off to the Lighthouse Club in Santa Monica.
Hello, Jack.
Mr. Benson, this is Courtney Sheldon. He's a buddy of mine from the war.
Well, I'm sure you two will want to polish some old war stories. Good evening, Jack. Mr. Sheldon.
Good night, sir. Take a seat, Courtney.
We need your help, Jack.
I told you I would have nothing to do with that.
I'm fine too, Jack. Medical school's going well. I got a part-time job.
Do dope peddlers need part-time jobs?
We made a mistake and we're in trouble, Jack. A local gangster, Mickey Cohen, is putting on the squeeze.
So hand it over, walk away. What's stopping you?
We had a deal with them that they would dole it out slowly. They said they would supply abortion clinics and doctors, but they've been moving it on to addicts, and they can't cope with the purity.
So your problem is with gangsters being dishonest.
My problem is that people are dying, and that if this gets back to us, we'll all end up in jail.
So how am I supposed to help, Courtney? This isn't the war. I can't just wave a magic wand and clean up your mess.
We want you to negotiate, Jack.
The only thing these guys understand is force, Sheldon. They got to the top back east by proving to be more vicious than the English, the Irish, and the Dutch. They make their own laws. That's the nature of a secret society.
God's sake, Courtney, you want to be a doctor. How can you fight with that?
We are better trained, Jack.
I didn't make it through the war to come back to this kind of shit, Sheldon.
Oh, Sheldon, what have you done? But I think the title of this newspaper tells it all. Missing morphine. Did Sheldon have something to do with this? In the last newspaper, he was talking with some sort of crime boss about dealing drugs. I think we're getting the picture. He somehow got his hands on morphine and decided to work with the mafia to distribute it to the people who needed it. I'm sure he thought he was doing it for the greater good. He had the best of intentions, but the idiot worked with the mob. Of course they were gonna break their deal. Oh, what was he thinking? But now we've met this new fellow, Jack Kelso. Why did Sheldon go to Kelso? Well, we don't have enough information to speculate about that now. Instead, we need to search the shack of Ackerman. And what do you know? Lo and behold, on his bedside table, we find some bloodied triple-braided rope.
Looks familiar. Safe bet it'll match the mark under Teresa Terreldson's chin.
Safe bet indeed, and we know Teresa came by here. But isn't this a bit convenient? I mean, even a crazy hobo like Ackerman would know to dispose of a murder weapon, and yet here it is on his bedside table, which is right next to a window. So even if the front door was closed, anyone could have reached in and set it here. Moving to the other side of the shack, we find something that doesn't belong. T.T. Teresa Terreldson. Inspecting inside, sure enough, we find a ticket to the Crystal Ballroom where we know Teresa and Jessup went.
Ackerman doesn't look like much of a dancer.
This is as hard of evidence as we could possibly find. Just as we're about to leave, we notice a photograph on the nearby table.
No good to me.
A photograph of Ackerman. So he is a veteran. He served in the war. And he wears this faraway look, as if whatever he was forced to do during the war haunted him then, and possibly continues to do so now. Now that we know he's a vet, we can take another look at his shack and we find evidence of it everywhere. We find his U.S. Marine Corps fatigues lying on his bed and hanging above his headboard. And in his nightstand beneath the rope is a helmet. And nearby we find a duffel bag filled with gear. All Ackerman owns is what he was able to take with him after leaving the military. Heading out, we can make our way back to the patrol car. We pass by more hobos. Apparently, these are the ones whom Galloway didn't kill and didn't attack us. One of them is jamming on a harmonica. Back at the car, we can head to Central.
The husband has an alibi, but no real motive other than neglect. Jessup's alibi checks out. Bates is a recidivist. He'll be pulling the same stick until we put him away for good. Ackerman has history, opportunity, hard evidence. What motive?
We have the evidence. We know she was here. All we need is a confession and we can charge the bum with murder.
We arrive at Central at 3:08 p.m. And Galloway seems to know exactly where he's being held.
We're going this way.
We find Ackerman in interview room 1.
Ackerman, you were in the Marines.
How do you know?
The Corps selected big guys for flamethrower duty. That's how you got the burns.
Life expectancy was 5 minutes for a guy in flamethrower detail. What kind of a government puts weight like that on a man's shoulders?
You'll get no argument from me. It was a heavy load.
You feeling sorry for this smelly fuck?
A big guy. Big enough to hold a flamethrower in the Marines. Big enough to carry the corpse of a woman he murdered to place it down on the crime scene without leaving drag marks.
Why did you kill Mrs. Terrelson?
I have no recollection of the people I have killed.
Oh, for Pete's sake, is he really gonna pull this stick with us? This is a unique interrogation because we can pass it really easily. We can pass it either by choosing doubt for every single question, or by accusing him if we have evidence that we think we can pin on him. In this example, we think we can prove that he murdered Mrs. Terrelson.
Are you denying that you strangled Mrs. Terrelson with a length of rope?
I'm not denying anything. You have to have proof, lackey.
And the proof is the blood-stained piece of rope we found in his shack.
We found a matching piece of rope in your lean-to. I think we'll find the blood will match too.
I own no property. How could it belong to me?
Oh, flawless logic there, buddy. I'm sure that'll hold up in court. Come on, man, if you didn't do it, why aren't you defending yourself? Answering questions like this isn't doing himself any favors. It's just making him look more guilty. But maybe that's his goal. Maybe he did do it and he wants to be caught. Next, we'll ask him about his contact with the victim.
A bus driver dropped Mrs. Terrellson near your camp around 2 a.m. Why did you take her up to the hill?
Which hill? I have many places. I go where I please.
Oh, and look at this guy. He just thinks he's the smartest fellow in the world. Look how pleased he is. You can hear his internal monologue. If I answer the questions obtusely, they're not going to get any evidence to convict me. As a good communist, I can't own property, therefore I can't be accused of a crime. These capitalist fools didn't think of that one. I'm so clever. For this question, we don't have evidence, so all we can do is play bad cop.
You are clearly insane, Ackerman. The state of California does not execute mental patients.
I don't know the names of the women I've killed, but I've killed many of them. Their necks are so fragile.
Oh, come on, is this guy for real? I kind of feel like Cole was throwing him a bone with that "we do not execute the mentally deranged" bit, and Ackerman kind of went with it. He just admitted to snapping the necks of women. Unless he was lying, but since this department needs a murderer, they're likely going to accept his story. What an idiot. And finally, we can ask for this guy's alibi.
Where were you around 2 a.m. last night?
At the camp.
We have two options here. We can doubt his story or provide some evidence, but which one is the most likely? All he says is that he was at the camp. We don't have any evidence that proves otherwise, but we do have the eyewitness testimony of the neighbor who says that she saw this particular disfigured hobo wandering around nearby. But again, that's not any proof because his hobo camp was nearby, and she didn't see him at the top of the hill while the murder was going on, so she doesn't really know if he was there at that time or not. Now, we don't get the impression that he's telling us the truth because of his behavior. He looks shifty-eyed. It looks like he's hiding something, but his responses have been so insane so far that we don't really know what his motivations are. Is he trying to get caught or is he trying to get off? Knowing that motivation would help us understand his behavior, so we can only really rely on the last piece of evidence that we have. Evidence that allows us to accuse him of the murder.
You were up on the hill. You were seen during the day. We have a witness. We have evidence. Come clean with me, Ackerman, and I'll see what I can do for you.
I despise your pity. You have nothing that links me to this woman.
But we do. We have Teresa Terreldson's purse, embroidered with her initials, containing a ticket to the Crystal Ballroom, where we knew that she was at.
We have you cold, Ackerman. Her purse and the ballroom ticket were in your lean-to. Tell us why you did it.
I kill because people need killing. It's what I was trained to do.
Stuart Ackerman, I am charging you with the murder of Teresa Terreldson.
A man down on his luck I can abide. But a filthy red who chooses to live outside the rules of society I cannot stomach. Maybe poor Teresa Terrelson will provide the catalyst we need. I've spoken to the chief and the mayor, and I think it's time we send some men in to remove the godless and send them on their way over the county line. A grand day that will be, gentlemen. And a grand result you have brought me. You two are fast becoming my finest crusaders.
With that, we complete the case, and we'll likely get a conviction. But there's still so much about accusing the suspect that we have that bothers me. First, of course, the rope, which is, again, conveniently placed right out in the open. Anyone could have seen it. That has been a recurring motif with every one of these murders we've explored since we've joined Homicide. The killers didn't even attempt to hide any of the incriminating evidence. Now, Teresa's purse was not by Ackerman's window, but Ackerman could have gotten this purse in any number of ways. What if, while the real killer was killing her, Teresa dropped her purse and this hobo simply happened to pick it up? He is, after all, a hobo, likely not one who would give it to the police, but instead would keep it for himself. There are any number of ways he could have gotten his hands on this purse. He was just easy to convict because he didn't bother to help himself. But the thing that really gets me, the thing that makes me think that it can't be Ackerman, are the tire tracks on the hill. Ackerman is a hobo. He doesn't have a car. Whomever killed Teresa had a car, put her body in the trunk, and drove to the top of the hill in the wet. That couldn't have been Ackerman. He doesn't own a car. He doesn't have access to a car. He couldn't have hired a cab. He doesn't have any money. Now, I suppose anyone could have driven up after the body had been placed there. Maybe a looky-loo who was just curious. We don't really have any evidence that the tire tracks came from the murderer's car. And another thing that we couldn't follow up on was the shoe size of Ackerman. Likely because it wouldn't have fit. Ackerman is a big guy, a big enough guy to be given flamethrower duty in the U.S. Marine Corps, and it's unlikely that a big guy like Ackerman would have a size 8 shoe. If we were able to discover that he didn't have a size 8 shoe, that would have completely shattered our case against him. We know the murderer had a size 8 shoe, but we were never given the option to discover that fact. I do think that this case is similar enough to the previous murder cases to conclude that we're dealing with the same killer here. A married woman who was out late at night, either drinking and was therefore drunk or had recently visited a bar, strangled to death with the same type of rope, and then left out in a field. The only thing that makes this murder different from the others is that she wasn't stripped naked. But this can be explained by the fact that we found the purse at Ackerman's camp. If Ackerman wasn't the murderer, then the real murderer lost her purse. Ackerman just happened to pick it up. Upon transporting her to the hill, he discovers he no longer has the lipstick he was gonna use to mark up her body, and so he figures, well, then I won't undress this one. And she wasn't wearing her wedding ring because she was mad at her husband. She decided to go out dancing. And then she went to a bar to pick up a sailor, so the sailor would take her dancing. She wanted to hide the fact that she was married to make it easier for a man to pick her up. The inconsistencies between this murder and the previous ones can be explained by the unique circumstances of this murderer. Therefore, I think that there's plenty of evidence that this one was done by the same man, which means if he's not Ackerman, then he's still out there. What are your thoughts on the white shoe slaying? Did you enjoy how this one was a little bit more elaborate and complicated? Do you have your own theory about who the Black Dahlia killer may be? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I publish many videos here on my channel, most of which are Fallout, but I am slowly getting through the entire story of L.A. Noire. If you don't want to miss my next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs you can't find anywhere else. My shirts come in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. The designs come on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon this week with more brand new videos.